Hey you, I'm Sarah Turner. I'm a freelance medical copywriter, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the difference between content writing and copywriting and which one is best for you. As a copywriter, I am obviously biased towards copywriting, but I have really good reasons as to why. And I want to be sure to cover some important questions, like what is a little bit about the difference between content and copy, and then also where should a beginner start, which one did I start with, and how much money can they each make, and what experience do you need to bring into each category. So I'm going to just start right off the bat with my very strong opinion that I think a lot of people tend to veer towards content versus copywriting. One, because they don't quite understand the difference, and two, because copy sounds a little bit more intimidating than copywriting. So I think a lot of people make this decision based on fear. And I'm all about encouraging, examining exactly why we make decisions and really challenging some of those self-limiting beliefs so that we can actually be the best writer we can be. We can deliver our clients the best results, and we can have a really fulfilling career as a freelance writer. So first, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between content and copy. And copywriting in its truest form is writing that is designed to get someone to act. And a lot of times that's to get somebody to make a purchase. But it could also, especially in today's world where everything is like online, a lot of businesses are moving online. It could be things like getting somebody to sign up for an email list, getting people to donate, getting people to get behind a cause or to share or comment on a piece. And so copy uses psychology. It's more like writing as you talk. It can be a little bit more casual, not always though. And it uses degrees of influence and emotional triggers. There is a lot of psychology, as I said, behind it, which I find really enjoyable to learn about. Copywriters really understand their audience really, really well. That is a really key part of being a good copywriter. You need to know your audience's hopes, dreams, their worries, and their fears, because you're not just writing to inform, you're writing to actually dig in, get to know them, address their pain points, solve problems, and ultimately get them to act. Some people have called copywriting salesmanship in print, but I don't think that's really a complete definition, especially today, because the world of marketing has changed because of the internet. So we want to agree with brands more. We want to have a relationship with them more than it used to be back in the day. So I think that, and actually David Garfinkel, one of my favorite quotes, David Garfinkel said, copywriting is using written word to start, enhance, or extend a relationship with the customer that subsumes or includes salesmanship in print. So this could be one of the things, but it's not the only thing. And that's one of the big dogs in copywriting, right? So even he's saying it's not just salesmanship. So types of copy include sales pages, white papers, website copy, ad copy, emails, billboards, brochures, blogs, articles, which could be the same thing, ebooks and opt-ins. I mean, there's so many different types of copy. And the main question I get people to ask themselves when they're wondering, is this copy or is this content? Is it encouraging somebody to act? And there are some forms of copy, which is like included in content marketing. Again, these words are being used kind of interchangeably, and so that's where a lot of the confusion comes from. But like, for example, a good strategy is to have a blog where you have 10 helpful resources to solve a problem, and your product is slipped into one of those 10 resources. But that, to me, is a piece of copy. I'm sure we could get in a debate. I'm sure there's copywriters who maybe disagree. I have a hard time understanding that, because ultimately that piece is strategically designed to get somebody to trust, to establish or build more of a relationship with their audience or consumer, and then to ultimately buy your product. So to me, that's a form of copy. But just to give you an idea of where some of the confusion comes from in the whole world of like copy versus content. And then content is truly to be purely informative. So there's no desire to get the people that are reading it to act. It could be articles, it could be science-based, it could be journalism, it could be reports, but it's basically informative content. And sometimes it's supposed to be a little bit more unbiased. So this is things like WebMD, Thrillist, just Huffington Post, Greatest, things like that, where it's just kind of like information. But I bet you a lot of those pieces have CTAs, or call to actions, at the bottom, which is a really good indicator that a piece of content is actually a piece of copy, is when they say, hey, subscribe to our email newsletter, or hey, download this free ebook so you can get to know us better, or, have this really awesome piece of content. So that is kind of the difference between copy and content. And really, in the world that we live in today, where there's so much written information online, I really encourage people to be copywriters. And when people say to me, oh, I think I'd rather be a content writer, and I ask them questions about why that is, why they think that, generally, and I mentor lots of people on this, so I feel like I have a pretty good idea at this point that generally people choose to be content writers over copywriters, mostly out of fear. And that is just the fear that, you're an imposter, and how can you call yourself a copywriter if you don't have some sort of certification or went to school for it. But most copywriters, even like the really big ones from back in the day, which we're always still referring to in the world of copywriting, kind of always think it's funny that we still refer to these old white dudes. But even those guys are mostly self-taught, because it's psychology, it's empathy. That's another thing that I see. People who are really fantastic copywriters are generally empathetic people. They understand other people's emotions. They can really speak to them heart to heart. They have strong intuition. And of course, this is not a blanket statement. I really don't even like absolute statements. So this is not always true, but this is my observation. And I work with hundreds of copywriters, so I feel like I have a pretty good idea of that. So anyway, going back to content writing versus copywriting, if you are struggling and you're going back and forth deciding between which one is right for you, is it fear that's really holding you back from calling yourself a copywriter? Because in order to be a copywriter, you just need to continuously be studying copy. And I always say that, copywriters are forever students. When people ask me about my job, I first of all have to hold myself back because I get really excited talking about it. But I am a forever student. I'm constantly learning about copywriting and just emotional triggers and tactics and why people behave the way they behave. But it's an ongoing process. Even if you went and got a degree in copywriting, if you were to stop learning about copywriting, you're doing yourself a big disservice, because even the world of marketing is changing dramatically year to year. So constantly, to be a copywriter, in my mind, you really just need to be constantly learning, reading, taking things in, finding mentors you admire, following them, and constantly learning and adding to your skill set, bringing value to your clients. So for me, that's the main difference between being able to call yourself a copywriter and call yourself a content writer. I started out not knowing which one I was. I was writing for content mills, so I guess I was a content writer. But what happened was I really quickly saw that the main difference was just taking the time to kind of understand the difference between content and copy, and I saw that copy is much more effective. And this has gone so far as to when I talk to clients and they think that they want a content writer as opposed to a copywriter, with things like articles and blogs, which again I think is a term that's being used interchangeably. And so when we talk about that and they think they want a content writer over a copywriter, I basically tell them that to just write content without any reason behind it, without any strategy, any sales strategy, any marketing strategy, any inbound marketing strategy, if you're just writing content, you're basically word vomiting. You're not doing it with intention or persuasion. And so I generally, point that out to them, and then I say I think it's kind of a waste of time. If we are going to spend all this time, energy, and money on writing blogs and email sequences, we should, one, be earning you sales so that you can continue to develop this really helpful content. And I write in health and wellness, so a lot of these companies are, wanting to spread quality information to their audience so that they can help them live better, healthier lives. And so when we're doing that, we want to be thinking are we adding to our email list with this? Are we, boosting sales? Are we recommending our own products? Because if you're not doing that, then to me, content is just a waste of time, money, and energy. So yeah, so I started with content writing, I guess. I was just kind of wanted to be a freelance writer and was figuring out what I should do. And then I kind of made the switch to copywriting, and really all it was just reading a little bit about it. I cleared out my news feed. My Facebook barely has any political family or friends, and I use it as a tool now. I fill it with really inspiring and educational people, other copywriters, and it's basically learning through osmosis how to be a better copywriter. And so that is really all I did differently, was to start studying it with intention to call myself a copywriter. Also, generally, copywriters make more money. And the reason is because they're pulling results. So you can write content, but if you're just writing content, like blogs, for example, I see blogs written all the time where there's no purpose to them except to be helpful information. And while that is great, there's so much more that can be done with that. SEO is a big thing, search engine optimization, making sure that your blogs, your website content are all optimized so that Google can find them more readily, which is going to boost your traffic, put you in front of more people. And in my opinion, I'm sure, there are some people who call themselves SEO content writers, but more often than not, they're calling themselves copywriters because they're pulling results for their clients. And to me, that is the main job of a copywriter, is to increase visibility, sales, action, and really get people fired up about their brand and become loyal and in love with their company or brand or the person that it is. So generally, copywriters make more. And if you're going to be a freelance writer, it is hard work, right? It's hard work. You put your heart and your soul in it, and then hopefully you're working for companies and brands that you really, really love, so you get fired up about it and it's a little bit easier. But you're gonna get paid more because you are working to bring in results. So that's another reason I'm like, why would you be a content writer? And then let's see, the last question, how much experience do you need to begin in each category? You can get started doing both right now. What I like to explain to my students, especially who are starting out and they're feeling a little insecure about calling themselves a copywriter so early on, is there are clients that need copywriters all the way up the copywriting ladder. Some people can afford experts like me and pay the big dollars for copywriters who really know what they're doing. But then there are small businesses, mom and pop shops, solo entrepreneurs, coaches, individuals, baby brands, new brands that just can't afford the big time copywriters. So they need somebody who's studying the industry, studying the skill, working on their skill set, but they can't afford, somebody who's really experienced. So there are jobs for copywriters all the way up the copywriting ladder, all the way up the marketing ladder. So you can start calling yourself a copywriter pretty early on. And honestly, I'm a firm believer that the way that you can grow and help yourself grow exponentially is to always be striving for something that is just outside your comfort zone. So sometimes I'll take on a project that I haven't quite done before. I would never lie to my client that I haven't done it before. I'm always super transparent. But I will, take on a project that really gets me out of my comfort zone, makes me a little nervous, and I will deliver. I will sometimes hire somebody else who is an expert in that and get their feedback, and I will just make sure that I deliver. And that's another thing I want to point out that I see a lot with my own students is, charge for the value of the actual thing that you're doing, the website, copy, whatever. Charge for the actual value of the project, not for what you think your value is. Because in my experience, if you do that, you are going to rise to the occasion. And if you are obviously the kind of person who knows you'll rise to the occasion, keep that in mind. Charge based on value. That is how, you become a better and more successful copywriter really, really quick. And yeah, so I just really want to encourage you, if you are struggling with this decision, and you are not sure if you should be a content writer or a copywriter, ask yourself why. Is it because you're afraid? Because if it's because you're afraid, surround yourself with other copywriters doing the same thing. Get a support group, start reading the copywriting classics, practice hand copying copy, and start intentionally designing everything you write to involve intention, psychology, and have goals behind everything that you write. Copywriting is a great skill. It's basically more effective communication. And I really believe that if you are writing again for brands and businesses you love and believe in, you're going to be an awesome copywriter. Like if you knew or had the cure for cancer, you would be standing on the actual rooftops shouting about it. And that is another way to think of what copywriting is. You would be screaming to the world about how you have the solution and how they need it in their life. And that is copywriting when it's done with, in alignment with your values. So I really hope that helps you with your decision about whether or not you should be a content writer or a copywriter. Obviously, keep in mind, I am totally biased as a copywriter, but those are my reasons why, and I hope that helps you make your decision. Thanks for watching, and if you liked what you saw, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and hit subscribe, and I'll be adding to my YouTube channel weekly, so feel free to leave what you'd like to see more of in the comments, and I'll be sure to follow up. Thanks, guys!